This is the story of a young woman given a great gift. It is set in 10th century Russia and is the story of her fight with fate as she seeks to learn the benefit of a gift that brings her pain. It is the type of story that can likely only be told by an ugly old man as he works to do better. The story is Soul Nurse. Maria stood in the woods looking at the village in the distance, filled with farmers and hunters, mothers and fathers, laughing children, all that people needed to make Obleska a thriving community, the gravest of dangers. Her hair had gone wild in the months in the woods, dirty and tangled, though the dirt was not so obvious in her raven mane. She brushed it away, wondering if there was any way to avoid the town. But no, she needed the food, so she would risk the contact and would do what she must in order to barter for her survival. The thoughts of the price she would pay surrounded her, guarding the borders of her mind, attempting to protect her from the hurt she would endure. But she had to eat. The town was open with space between the grass-roofed houses. Fire sent smoke skyward and people bustled about, hauling carts filled with wheat, potatoes, beans, and other produce grown in the fields surrounding Obleska. It was a simple village. There was no grand palace or stone church, just a hut with a cross in front and a few buildings had stonework. And one looked like it might have 4 rooms, likely the home of the mayor or a town councilman. Otherwise, there was nothing but poor tenements. A few children ran, screaming youthful joy. Otherwise, people worked. Maria knew the simplicity hid torments as great as she would find in the most urbane city. For at every turn, there was guilt, anger, fear, and the sadness nestled in human hearts. Humanity's tragedies bit her deeply, personally. Maria walked into the village. People eyed her, wondering about the stranger, unaware of how strange she was. Soon enough, a young man who looked to be a little older than her, probably 15, with hands already calloused from years of farming and hair matted with sweat, greeted her. "Good day, miss. Passing through?" "Might as well get right to it. I may stay a day or two. I'm hoping I can lay in food before moving along." As she said this, she was keenly aware of the slack sack over her shoulder. "Tell me, is there someone who's experienced a great loss here? Someone who's sad?" "That's an odd thing to ask." "I'm here to lend aid to the broken-hearted in return for food." "Are you a witch?" The soul nurse shook her head. Witches were common enough, but most were frauds, or at least that's what Mama had told her, and she found no reason to doubt her mother. "No, I'm not sure what I am, but I have a talent for lifting people's hearts." The man gave her a long look before shrugging his shoulders. He pointed at a woman hauling a cart 20 paces away. "Slavers captured Olga's husband a week ago. At least that's what we think. Turgov went hunting one day and never came back. It must have been a small band, too small to raid the village, but they cornered him alone. We found signs of a struggle and blood in one of his favorite hunting spots, along with strips of his clothing. As he spoke, she slumped. Anyway, she's got more food than she needs. More worries, too." Maria hurried to the woman, whose hair was blonde with little gray. Older than her, probably 10 or 15 years older. There were 2 small children walking beside her, a boy and a girl. Olga had been luckier than Mama. Maria stopped a cow's length away and said, "Excuse me." When Olga turned, Maria could see the torment in her eyes. Anyone could. Large gray bags and tear sacks screamed of an open wound. "I know you've suffered a terrible loss. I can't replace it, but I can help your heart move past it for a few days. The woman stared back, glassy-eyed, shaking her head like one who sought damnation. But Maria continued, it will help you care for your children. All I ask is a little food. Do you want to be better? The woman continued staring, finally nodding. Maria pulled her bag around. Would you be willing to fill a quarter of this? Olga replied with a raspy voice. If it is as you say, then yes, I will do that. Maria took a deep breath and reached out. The woman pulled away in fear, but Maria took one of her hands, and pain seared through the soul nurse, as if hot tongs tunneled into her flesh. The soul nurse knew that every guilty thought Olga had felt, every fear she had for her family's future, every shred of anger she had at the fates poured out of her. Not permanently, but it would get her through the roughest days ahead. And if Olga had few wounds beyond her grief, she would do well, lifted out of her darkness and into a caring life. For Maria, pain was a constant companion, as it had been from the start. Maria had looked upon Kiev as a 13-year-old girl missing her small town, standing alone before the splendor of the city. It was still far away, but already she could see peaked towers of churches and palaces, signs of wealth beyond her imagination, a place to begin a new life. It had been a week since her mother died, trying to give Papa the son he wanted so badly that he kept trying after 4 failures. This time, the baby had lived to take a handful of breaths. Mama, not so long. Sunset came. Best to spend one more night in the fields before entering the city and hoping someone had a use for a young girl on her own that didn't involve. Well, even in dark off, she'd heard stories. Sleep came with difficulty, leaving her of no idea when she slept, but she remembered the dream. A man draped in white stood before her, golden hair framing a face of surpassing beauty. Do not be afraid. Tonight you will receive a gift. Your touch will take away people's fears, their doubts, their anxiety, their guilt, and lift the stain of their sins from their hearts, enabling them to live a better life. It will not remove the sin from their souls, so should they not change their lives, their pain will continue. Choose wisely who you help. Do not nurse those who will not repent. And always use this for the good of others, lest a stain blacken your own soul. Go in peace, Maria. Your mother is well and loves you. We all do. From the beginning, your life was a gift to this world. This is what is meant to be. Morning came and the dream made little sense to her, but she pondered as she walked to the capital. There were magnificent buildings, but also squalid hovels that any villager would be ashamed of. In front of one of these sat a boy, perhaps 8 years old, who was lean, staring forward with haunted eyes. The beggar held his hands out and said, "Coins for food?" She had no coins, but impulsively she took his hands. The boy immediately smiled back. "Thank you." He ran into the house. A moment later, an older boy escorted him back to the street, dragging him by an ear, and told him to keep working. Maria had made him feel better, but not solved his problems. Perhaps the dream had not been a dream, but what good was this gift? Well, she had no money, and no other way to earn any. All she had was this effect on people. Perhaps she could use it to help herself. And what of the angel's message? Or was it an angel? Was the vision even real? Surely it had been just a dream. Maybe the talent was something innate to her, not really having anything to do with the dream at all. Whatever it was, she had to think of herself first. That couldn't be wrong. Isn't that what talent was for? Maria worked her way through the city to the Merchant Square, and from there to the richest stall, a pavilion with a series of carpet-covered areas selling food and clothing. In the rear, she saw a fat man, easily thrice her weight, sitting and watching all that happened as his business's dozen tables, as he stroked his beard, dropping crumbs onto his immaculate white and red robe. Next to him stood two tall guards wearing two light leather helmets and holding axes and arms whose biceps would scare small animals, even some large ones. When she dodged under a table and scooted toward the boss, one guard grabbed her around the waist. "Get away from my master, you have no business here." But when she put a hand on his arm, the guard smiled, relaxed, and she slid out of his grip. As she did, she noticed the slightest pinch of pain near her navel. "Who are you, and what did you do to my guard?" said the boss. "My name is Maria, and I want to see you. I have a gift I think you might find valuable. You've just seen what it does." "My name is Sergev. What is your gift? Turning strong guards into weak men?" "No, I take away people's worries, their guilt. May I touch you?" Sergev nodded. "Guards, watch her." Her eyes closed and she breathed deeply as she laid a hand on one of his, her palm covering barely half of the man's meaty fist. Sergev smiled and nodded his head. "This is remarkable." Now the pain spread throughout her chest, but Maria spoke nonetheless. "It does not last forever. If you do not change the habits which brought the feelings, they will return." All Sergev's teeth showed. "Better and better. You have come to the right place. I will dress you in the finest clothes, guiding the wealthiest to you. Together we will become rich." And so it started. The soul nurse saw no more than 12 clients every day. Nobles and merchants, slavers and landlords, bankers and soldiers. All the finest of Kiev came to see her, and word leaked throughout the countryside. The wealthy throughout Rus came to her tent, and they would kill her. The pain became worse, such that she was in constant torment. Sergev limited her visits, first 12 a day, then 6, then 2. He didn't care. The rareness of her availability allowed him to charge more. And then came the return visitors, men and women she had touched before and now were back, most suffering pain worse than before as their guilt returned redoubled when they failed to repent. Surely these would reach the point where their heartache was so overwhelming they surrendered to it, abandoning all succor until death. Sergev became surly, barking at her when he saw her, though he avoided her touch like a plague. Yet worse than these were those who returned only slightly annoyed. Their guilt ran shallow, regardless of their concern. All they wished was to end the inconvenience of the discomfort they felt. By removing that pinch, Maria freed them to pursue even greater evils. One night, a gang of masked men broke into her chamber, throwing the door wide as they flew into her room. There were 5 of them, all carrying swords. 2 of these with fresh blood on their blades. They had no armor, but wore heavy gray clothes that appeared thick enough to stop any blows. Though worn from use and rent in places, Sergev hadn't guarded her well enough. One invader grabbed her, clamping a hand over her mouth. "You're coming with us!" The bandits bound and gagged her, then wrapped her in the room's carpet. They moved wordlessly, professionals applying their craft. Maria felt them marching away from Sergeyev's home, uncertain of where they were going, but terrified. They meant to steal her gift, force her to use it for their own profit. What wall of pain awaited her? Selling her touch for Sergeyev had been painful. What would it be like to do it as these people's slave? Was her talent only to be given to those who didn't deserve it? She needed an escape. This gift was a curse. She needed to stay away from people as much as possible. All were vile, taking advantage of her to make themselves feel better when they had no intention of improving their lives with kinder hearts. "Halt," said a muffled voice. "What are you doing moving carpet this time of night? I'll wager there's something that's not yours inside the rug." There was a clanging of steel, and she thudded as she hit the ground. Finally, the rug opened, and she looked into the face of an older man, likely edging towards 30, in a guardsman's armor, brown hair and a beard, a handsome, weathered face, which bore scars from many struggles. Around him were the bodies of 3 thugs with another bound in row. 2 guardsmen lay by the swale as well. The older man said, "Well, what have we here?" "It's the miracle girl. We'll have you back to Sergeyev before dawn." "Please, sir, let me go." "What? Why would someone with your gift wish to run? I'm sure Sergeyev cares for you." "My gift is nothing but pain for me. Every sorrow I absorb cuts at me. I have to leave." She risked her most effective argument and reached out and took his hand. The sensation of a bludgeon struck the back of her head, and she gasped. He relaxed, studying her. Surely seeing her grimace, hearing her whimper, he reached into his armor and pulled out a purse. "Here, take this and go. May God be with you, and may he give you the peace you have given me." She ran, not stopping until the fields outside the city hid her. "Miss, you must help me." Maria turned to see a portly man dressed in clothes that spoke of wealth, wearing a silver chain of authority around his neck. His blonde hair was clean and his beard well trimmed, probably the leader in this little town. Yet for all his apparent privilege, there were bags under his eyes, and he was slightly hunched. Maria knew the signs well. This was a man whose conscience pursued him. The soul's nurse had half the food she needed to sustain her for a month, and he appeared able to provide the rest, and perhaps a little extra. "What can I do for you?" He hung his head and whispered, "I have a problem that's haunting me. Something I did last night. I understand you can calm a troubled heart and would pay handsomely." "It won't last if you don't make changes." The man grunted and shook his head. "That will be fine." His face rose, and they made eye contact. There had been tears in those eyes. "For now, the burden of my conscience feels too great." What had he done last night? "I'll pay 3 grivna," he said. That would take care of her for 2 years. He must be terribly guilty about something, and that was her good fortune. Even if whatever transgression he had committed, he would repeat. "Yes, show me your money." He handed her the silver sticks, which she pocketed before putting hands on his arm. Pain stabbed her instantly, rampaging through her body in all directions from her heart, which felt as if a hammer had struck him. She staggered backwards, bending over from the impact of the pain, which spread through her body, settling into constant spikes. A steady rain of nails pierced her flesh. The man chortled as he walked away. Yes, I feel much better. It was such an unimportant thing for me to be upset about. Maria staggered away, collapsing under a tree at the edge of town, curling into a ball, moaning in pain. She had to stop doing this. Then she heard the slap. It was followed by a woman's scream and a man's yell. Harlot, you think to make a fool of me? A cuckold? I'll bet it's his baby and not mine. Anna, get out of my life. Go live with his other sluts. More slaps and yells followed, ending when the door slammed. Despite her pain, Maria had to know. She picked herself up and hobbled to the cottage, finding a young blonde girl showing the signs of pregnancy, sitting on a stump, crying. The girl looked up, large blue eyes fixing on Maria. He's kicked me out for good this time, the girl said. Her skin was pale, and she wore a dirty hood and cloak which did little to hide Anna's beauty. At least Maria could give her words. She squatted in front of the girl. He doesn't seem like much of a loss. You don't understand. I have his baby. We were going to be married. Olenov was out on the road making deliveries to Tony last night, and the mayor came by. The mayor said many things, but all I said was no. And he hadn't cared what she said. Now he cared even less. There's nothing I can do about the mayor, and no man will have me. The mayor, the man with the silver chain and the guilty conscience she assuaged. Maria had harmed this girl, removing pain which should have remained. But was the girl truly worse off? What sort of husband abandoned a pregnant wife so brutally? Maria had seen enough of humanity's dark side to realize this was not uncommon. Uncommon did not mean acceptable. Still, I think you are better off without Toynik. I can't make it on my own. How will I take care of my child? The whole town is going to learn I'm a slut. My life is over. Maria thought of 3 hryvnia as the guilt lacquered her pain. The lump in her throat, more a burden than a spiritual needle, spread through her body. Here, take these. The girl's face collapsed on itself. I don't need money. I must insist. Without thinking, Maria walked to the girl, hesitating a moment before hugging her as she slid the bars into the girl's skirt pockets. As she did this, a dark cloud washed through her, and she fell unconscious. Maria woke bundled in a cot with Anna's smiling face above her, the hryvnia back in Maria's right hand. You've returned to the land of the living, the girl said. It's good to see. Where are we? Maria said. I took my husband's suggestion. This house holds the women who have been cast aside. There are 3 others who will help me survive. They will be the best of friends. The girl had been so distraught before, but now she radiated joy, giving her the face of an angel. How will you take care of the baby? It's the strangest thing. Before you embraced me, that was all I cared for. It seemed very serious to me. But it's just part of life, isn't it? I need to take the steps I can, and I pray someone will help me. But I'm having a baby, the most beautiful thing in the world. So I'll put my fretting away and plan. For the first time, Maria saw the value of her gift. She'd help people without understanding their needs. This felt different, and the magic of Anna's smile captured Maria's face as well. I felt peace as soon as you embraced me and everything cleared, Anna said. Did you do this? Maria nodded. That is my talent. People touch me and their fears, sorrows, and guilts go away. Not the problems behind those, but the feelings themselves. I'll warn you, it's only temporary. Anna leaned back, her smile settling into a neutral, thoughtful look. I'm sorry it doesn't do more, Maria. It really isn't very much, and it usually hurts. It's more pain for me than it's worth. For some reason, it didn't hurt this time. It just knocked me out. No, this is a sacred gift. I've got a lot to figure out, but now I see clearly. I'm sure that if I stop dwelling on my problems and start solving them, I will do better, and I won't be as upset. She nodded vigorously. Yes, this is much better. You have a wonderful gift. Do you wander around to share it broadly? Maria laughed. I move around so people won't catch up with me. Many are mad at me when their problems resurface in their hearts. As I said, this hurts and the pain is getting worse. I stay away from people as much as possible, going into villages when I must for food and supplies. If I could live in isolation, I would. Anna picked up 2 apples, offering one to Maria and taking one herself. You shouldn't have such pain. Have you considered a monastery? I've heard a holy man is founding one up in the caves near Kiev. Why hadn't she thought of a monastery? Some accepted women, so if this one didn't, surely it would point her in the right direction. She might have to travel a long distance, and she might not. The caves of Kiev were only a week's journey from here. You have given me an excellent idea. What time of day is it? Morning. Did I start my trip now? Maria stood up and hugged Anna. Thank you, Anna. You have gifts of your own. Now she felt nothing but Anna's warmth. Anna reached down and stroked her belly, her smile blazing as she nodded agreement. She looked off in the distance and Maria took advantage of the moment to slip the grivna into the apple basket in the room's corner. They would help these women and Anna's baby make it through the year. After she finished her apple, Maria gave Anna another big hug before leaving, thinking to give her a little more peace before turning north to Kiev. Again, there was no pain and the merest instance of weakness. Could it be she'd suddenly developed tolerance, or was there something else going on here? What was different about how she had received Anna's burdens? Perhaps she'd figure it out in the caves. She slunk her sack across her back and took the path that would lead back to Kiev. There was another village 3 leagues away, which she would reach at dark. Like all the villages, it was a collection of thatched hovels and dirty streets. The town was surrounded by fields that were already showing the signs of what they would yield. Maria had no desire to be seen, so she crept through the fields, around the village to the other side. She watched carefully for the trail, but it turned out there was no need. The sound of sobbing guided her. Maria found a boy, roughly 10 years old, sitting on a rock, head bowed over, tears dripping from his chin, barely visible in the twilight of the first few minutes following sunset. The boy wore tattered clothes with his light brown hair falling out from under his faded hood as he hugged himself in despair. He didn't notice her, and she could easily bypass him, but she was curious. The boy didn't know who she was or what she could do. What was the harm in learning his story? What's wrong? She said as she stood just out of reach. He looked up at her with a start. Where did you come from? I'm a traveler going to Kiev. Why are you crying? The boy's tears didn't let up. You didn't hear the news when you went through town. My father died. He was a priest. This morning he was helping fix a neighbor's roof. Suddenly he clutched his chest and fell dead. Mother died giving birth to my younger sister this past winter. Now it's just me, my baby brother, and two little sisters. I've got to take care of everyone. I don't know how I'll do it, but I won't let them split us up. We're family. He looked up with pleading eyes. How do I care for everyone? This poor child. For the first time in a long time, Maria couldn't help herself. She knelt by the boy and took him in his arms, wishing with all his heart to take on his troubles, accepting whatever pain may come. Oh my God, what was she doing? She'd pass out on the road and the boy would be better and the villagers would realize her gift. But that's not what happened. She felt the boy calm in her arms and his tears stop. She felt little pain and no weakness. Maria continued to hold the boy as she whispered in his ear, "What's your name?" He answered in a voice that crackled with the tenor of a boy turning into a man. "My name is Radek. What did you do to me? Are you some sort of witch? Did you come from the devil?" There was the question she never probed herself with. Where did her talent come from? When she sold it, whether for a coin, food, or good relations, she'd been cursed with pain. But when she gave it away, when she submitted to people's pain out of compassion, it was a different story. Maria lifted their hearts with only a little pain or weakness. No, this wasn't Satan's work. I'm not a witch. I've been given a gift, and it's a good one when I use it wisely. So much had changed in the past day. The soul nurse needed time to rethink who she was and what she should do with her life. "Can I ask that you tell no one what I've done for you?" Radek nodded in agreement. "Good. Let's get you back home. I'm sure we will find people to help you." "But what about your travels?" "I think perhaps I found my destination for today." Maria didn't know what life would hold for her, but she was suddenly sure she didn't belong in a monastery. She needed to be with people, helping them, healing their hearts, removing the scars of their sins and misfortune, while insisting they change for the better. If she did that, she was sure that everything else would take care of itself, rendering the pain she received unimportant. But for right now, there was nothing more important than these 4 children who had lost their parents. It would be a sin for Maria to leave before the children discovered their future. She was suddenly quite certain she held the light that would illuminate the road. Okay, that was a tough one for me. Bless you. May you find the gifts in your life and use them wisely in a way that makes those who know you wealthier and brings you contentment.